What's in a price? How do we come up with the numbers we list our offspring and our animals available for? How do we determine what to sell some of these snakes for? I'll give you my thoughts and opinions. Let's talk about it. Okay, so before we dive into this topic, and I'll share strictly only my opinions and thoughts and some experiences, this is going to pertain to carpet pythons only. You can extract whatever information out of this for your other niches in the hobby if you'd like, but today I'm going to be specifically talking about how we come up with pricing our animals in the Morelia world. And I'm not going to include chondros because I don't understand that. But I do understand, to a degree, carpet pythons. I have been involved in the Morelia community for over a decade now. At the very least, lurking and watching what other breeders were doing in the beginning. That's how I kind of got my foot in the door and began asking questions, getting to know people. And I was fortunate enough to be mentored by Todd Dyer of Psychotic Exotics for a very long time. So what I will be sharing with you guys today is based on experiences throughout those 10 years, acquiring knowledge, speaking to other breeders, paying attention on forums and Facebook, making mistakes on my own, and then, breeding. Coming into my 10th consecutive year breeding snakes, not necessarily just carpet pythons. And every year, what to price babies is a question I find myself asking. So when it comes to carpet pythons, I find, for me, lineage and the history behind the animals is important. If it's unique lineage, or if it's new to the country, or if it's just really stacked, that's going to hold higher value. If it's undocumented, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not valuable, but it just depends where you place your value. There are lots of undocumented animals out there that are stunning and beautiful example animals. So this girl here is actually an MIA line jungle. New to the U.S. as far as bloodlines go. All right, sweetheart. This is too much. Yeah, too much. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, this girl being new bloodline to the country, when these came in, these were about $750 as babies. You'll rarely see jungles at that price. Typically, they range in the $250 to $500 sort of price point. But yeah, being new blood to the U.S. from some confiscated animals from Australia, I definitely jumped in on this, and that was valuable to me. That was worth it. Not everybody might agree, and that's just one of those angles as far as how are the prices determined? Well, it's new blood. They can kind of price it high. Another thing to consider when figuring out what to price babies that I look at is previous prices. I now have somewhat of a mental backlog of what the previous years of certain animals were priced at, like these albino Darwins here. These generally have plateaued around the $450, $500 price point. And that's kind of what they're going to go at. I don't really want to go higher or lower. If I go lower, that hurts other breeders. If I go higher, people are going to just not buy from me. They're just going to go to the better price point. I'm not the only one producing these animals, so that also brings me to the other point, availability. How many people are producing these? Is there a lot of them? Are you the only one producing them? So that's something to pay attention to as well. So previous prices definitely have some sway and some influence. If there are more people breeding them than years prior, maybe prices go down. Fewer, maybe prices go up. Supply and demand. Kind of simple, basic economics right there. The other thing that all of you are very aware of today is the current economy sucks. So sometimes prices are negotiable during crappy economy. Maybe you give people the homie hookup price a little more frequently. There's lots of different ways to mitigate that, but inevitably we are all affected by a bad economy. So if the economy sucks and people aren't really willing to spend a lot of money on spare things, sometimes they're forced to take what you can get in terms of sales. So, and you'll also see a lot of people just lowering their prices during that time. And that's kind of similar to current trends, which is another point. What are the current trends? Are they very popular? Are they not popular? I think of ball pythons a lot more when this topic comes up. You see a lot of very prominent breeders reinvigorating the value in a morph because they found a cool combination it makes, and so they reinvigorate that excitement around it, and so they make a new trend, so to speak. So is there some trend influence on what you're thinking of breeding and producing, and will that have an effect on your sales? All right, another factor in price that is super, super important is your place in the market. Who are you to potential customers? Who are you to the community? Who are you to the market? Are you a nobody? Are you a no-show? Are you a ghost? Has nobody heard of you? Or do people know you? Do you participate in online discussions, podcasts? Are you on social media? Are you out there promoting the species? How active are you in these circles? These are all super, super valuable today. Times have changed, People want to know who you are. Back in the day, when options were limited, it was all about just mailing price lists and sending money, and people just hope to get something decent. And nowadays, people have the ability to be choosy, to be picky, and spend their money carefully, as they should. You shouldn't just flippantly buy something on a whim. That's when accidents happen, diseases get spread, so on and so forth. Now, this guy right here is my Axanthic tiger holdback from a couple years ago. I named him Everest because he's pretty wicked. I've been the only one producing Axanthic tigers in the United States for the last couple of years. I don't know why. Maybe one other person or two over the last few years. Now, that doesn't mean I get to dictate whatever I want on pricing. That doesn't mean I get to throw a $20,000 price tag on these. Axanthics have been made, tigers have been made. So what I'm looking at are just combining two things that exist. It's not new, it's not special. It's just if nobody's doing it, I have a little more free say in that. But if you go outrageous, people are going to notice. Their gut feeling is what's going to dictate their reaction. And that's all affected by what we were talking about earlier. The economy, your place in the market, all sorts of different stuff. And so if you're a nobody and you just pop out there with a logo and a t-shirt and you're flipping a bunch of snakes at whatever prices you feel like you want to mortgage your house on, people are going to see that. People are going to pick up on the really ugly used car salesman vibes. You try and make up some ridiculous story about why they're priced the way they are, people are going to know that about 2 sentences in. So what I did was I looked at what Axanthics were priced at. I looked at what tigers were priced at. I just added the two together, basically. It wasn't any rocket science. Maybe some variation in caliber. But then what I did was I paid attention to the response, how fast they sold, were people hemming and hawing on that. And ultimately, I made more the next season, and 2 years in a row, they all sold really well. So put enough out there, the market went a little bit crazier over the last years, and people aren't spending as much money, so I'm not going to produce as many because I don't really want to devalue the project for other people that bought from me. I'd like to keep the price where it's at. I think the $600 to $700, $750 price range is perfect for these as they are right now. And so other people have gotten into them with plans on breeding will be able to do that by me, one, not overproducing, and two, not doing any shady sales tactics to overinflate or sink the price. These animals are beautiful. They all have value, of course, but we need to remember that these are still animals. Things can go wrong. These are still people who are buying them. So we need to be realistic about expectations. All right, another thing I wanted to talk about is, where does the value lie in an animal? Okay, they're just snakes, right? In all reality, they're just snakes we're keeping in boxes. So where do we come up with this arguably artificial valuation? Well, obviously there's lots of expense that goes into taking care of them, producing them, advertising them, marketing them, feeding them, making sure they got the medical attention should they need it, all of the above, right? It's not free to produce animals, feed them, grow them up, all that good stuff, and life is just getting more and more expensive. So where does the value lie? Well, most people will place it in different emphasis for them, but as far as how it's sort of valued for me, visual appeal, lineage, and availability. Also, if there's a story behind it, that's going to lend some cool value. This animal right here is a boa cabana female, and if you are not familiar with boa cabana Papuans or boa cabana IJs, very, very long-standing line from some very old founder import animals when they were first coming in, produced by Scott and Jen Holland. Scott and Jen are wonderful people. I had personal experiences buying from them. They took great care of me. I have 1.2 of these animals that are stunning. They have a very well-known look. And as I was coming into the Morelia world, because I spent time reading and learning and lurking, I had heard the name Boa Cabana and seen how coveted it was by folks that were in this game before me. And I saw what they were talking about. I saw their photos. I saw their animals with that creamy goodness. And Scott and Jen were kind enough to send me photos of the founder animals that were still alive. Amazing story behind them. I love Papuan carpets. I love that we can still import them. And maintaining pure lines from diverse backgrounds is very important to me. So the prestige of the name, the beauty of the animals, the availability being, only getting from them. If you want the true good stuff from, the Boa Cabana famed line, I had to get them. So to me, it was worth it. But maybe not everybody values them that way. So you got to figure out where your valuation lies before you purchase a snake. And you also need to think about where somebody else might be valuing them before you put a snake out there for sale. And sometimes you got to look at what other people are valuing them at just to compare them, just to make sure you're not far off base, kind of reaching for the stars. A lot of people will find an established name in a certain niche and kind of start from there, compare quality, compare availability, things like that. But to me, it goes deeper. It goes into the story, it goes into the history of the people behind them, and then some just personal valuation. Everybody's got their own different interests, right? So anyway, gotta love beautiful, beautiful animals with a wonderful history behind them. Okay, now let's take a step back and talk about how to purchase as a customer. Like, what do you need to look at? What's important to you? Is the seller available? Are they free to communicate? Is the communication good? Are they easy to communicate with? All of those things are super important, and it can make or break a sale. It can leave a bad taste in the mouth before or after. I've definitely been guilty of getting fired up before and after, and I'm sure we all have when we were figuring things out or emotional or whatever, but I've learned from that. And I'm here to tell you, the more you talk with somebody, the more you give them information without them having to ask it, just be really friendly with them, be available to them. It goes a long way. They're choosing to spend their money with you. You might not be the only option. Remember that. They might be able to go find a cheaper option somewhere. So what makes you better? What makes you different? So this is a possible super hypo tiger coastal that I got from Nick Mutton, and we had a nice arrangement. I sent him some animals, he has sent me some animals. Cash was exchanged because his were more expensive, obviously, but I look up to Nick. I think a lot of us have. I can speak for many of us when we say Nick is a great standard of Morelia, keeping a good breeder and an innovator, and a lot of us look up to him. And so for me, anything that comes from him has high value for a lot of those reasons right there. But on top of that, if you know Nick, once he gets to know you and you kind of just communicate with him a few times and maybe make one purchase with him, talk to him, open up, he'll talk to you for hours. You'll become friends with him whether you like it or not. He's a very relatable guy. We all are. We all have our own hobbies and interests outside of reptiles. And so when we put these people up on pedestals, these breeders, or we kind of idolize and covet them and then realize that they're just, people like us and come down to talk to us, it feels great, and then you're happy to go back to them anytime you need another snake or want something. You just feel like that's who deserves it. That's who you want to give your money to. That's who you support. And so as a customer, I'm very cognizant of that. I know who to go to for certain things. But as a breeder, that's something you need to remember as well. So give them the time of day. And then as a customer, pay attention to that. If somebody's being cold shouldered to you, they're not speaking with you, they're short answers, they're kind of just like, they don't seem motivated to sell you the snake, read between the lines. Is there somebody else that will give you the time of day that maybe has just as good, if not a better animal? You never know. It's a competitive market. So not only do you have to have stuff that stands out, but you need to stand out. And I think everybody should be cognizant of that. And as a customer, you should definitely pay attention not only to the animal, but also the person selling you the animal. Because there's going to be a lot of red flags in there. Certain listings might give you red flags, crazy prices. If you ask them questions and they don't know how to answer them, or they say things that don't make sense, like it shows they don't understand genetics, or just something unethical about it. If you get a weird gut feeling, trust your gut. If you get red flags, like if they're sending photos that look like they're photoshopped, or you've seen that photo somewhere, or that baby looks like it's fresh out of the egg and hasn't even eaten, things like that, just be mindful, ask questions. You can always reach out to other breeders that are involved in those projects, and they can help clarify that oftentimes. And you can usually avoid making a big mistake and save yourself a lot of money that way. So just food for thought as a customer. You never know. There's a lot of shady people out there just trying to make money. It's hard times these days. So some people are doing it out of desperation, and some people are doing it because there's bad apples in every bunch, I guess. But yeah, just some food for thought. All right, and last thing I want to talk about, because this is getting long, is how should you go about purchasing and being smart and wise and cognizant, and what can you do to avoid getting scammed or getting ripped off? First of all, do a lot of research, and I don't just mean like Google them. I mean like look up if they've got a Facebook profile, see what else they list their animals on. Are they active in Facebook communities? Are they on podcasts? Are they guests on podcasts? Are they participating in the world that those snakes that you might be buying from are in? If they're a real person and they're really into them and they're really breeding, you should be able to find some sort of trace of them on social media, interacting with other breeders and keepers, because that's just what we do these days. You should be able to ask around, word of mouth, find out about people. You should be able to, Google and find a website. Breeders oftentimes have websites, but there are also those third-party websites like Morph Market, Fauna Classifieds, Kingsnake.com. They're great, and a lot of wonderful breeders use them, but you also have to be very careful as a buyer on there, because there are also people, like I said earlier, that are out there either stealing other people's photos and pretending to sell those snakes and just taking money and run. People flipping animals and doing very disingenuous things about misrepresenting what they are to try and extract more money out of you, inflating prices 5-10 times for no real good reason, making up great stories, inventing new morphs, things like that. And if you're not involved in the community, you don't know better. You don't know that they're lying and they're scamming you. What's listed as a $20,000 snake might actually be $1,500. So that stuff does happen. So ask around, do your homework. Most of us are pretty much all available online. If we're breeding and we're doing something, we're putting our animals out there, you can probably find some sort of trace of us. Yeah. It shouldn't be difficult, but it can be. And then there are snakes in the grass, of course. So watch out for those dirty little scammers. All right, I'm going to leave you now, finally. That's going to do it. This little jungle and I are going to see y'all out. Beautiful little thing. Can't keep them all. But don't forget what I said. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Reach out to me. If you have any concerns, anything like that, I'm available. You can message me on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. I've got my website for babies available. There's the spring store for merch, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check out my sponsors, Heli Guy Serpents, Reptiles Express, and PremieCrickets.com. Show them some love. If you're not a member of USARK in USARK, Florida, go join up, donate, help them out, fight the good fight. They support us. We can support them. Let's do our part. And last but not least, if you want to support what's going on here, Riley Jimison on Patreon.com. Pretty easy to find me. I'm everywhere. I will see you guys next time. Hope you are all enjoying this. Much love to everybody who's been subscribing. We just surpassed 3,700 subscribers. That's pretty freaking cool. Let's try and hit 4,000 before the end of the year. Thank you all for watching the Reptiles in the News shorts and everything else that I'm putting out. Catch you guys next time. Nope.